Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and we're back with another really good archetype dedication. I'm actually really excited to talk about this one. The Eldritch Archer is a hangover. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a prestige class brought over from first edition, but hey, I've been wrong on that before. In any regard, the Eldritch Archer is kind of like a mainstay as far as like D&D and D&D like games. It's the magical archer that can imbue their arrows to do some really cool tricks. And I think this archetype really steps up to the plate and knocks out a home run with how it overall works. So we're going to be getting into this one here shortly. But if you're enjoying these videos, please leave a like. And if you are, if you're enjoying these, subscribe to see more like them. We also have a Discord linked down below where we talk all things tabletop, including war games like Warhammer 40k. But that's enough of the shilling. Let's get on with the show. So the Eldritch Archer dedication itself is a dedication that is a level 6 dedication. So you do need to have, it is a little bit after early levels. So if you're playing with the free archetype bonus, which I recommend everyone does, you'll probably not be picking this one up until at least level 8. Granted, that you're picking another bonus archetype before this. But otherwise, it's really, really good. The only requirement is that you're expert in a weapon in the bow group, at least one type of bow. You don't even have to be trained in all bows, so just one bow. And that's actually surprisingly really easy. In fact, any character that gets simple proficiency gets the short bow. And I do think even classes like the Bard and other magic casters get access to the short bow as well. Meaning that most classes gain general access to this and there's no stat requirement. You become expert when you become expert. There's no investment on the player, so it doesn't take out of your build, and I think the effects are well worth it. When you take the Eldritch Archer, you gain access to spellcasting. You get this cast a spell activity, and you also gain access to a cantrip from, you choose one cantrip, from your choice of tradition, if you don't have one already. And you also if you're not trained as well, you also become trained in that tradition's attack rolls and DCs, and your spellcasting modifier for this tradition becomes charisma, which is pretty standard for any archetype dedication that gives you access to spellcasting when you're not an innate spellcaster. But that would be good. Cast a spell is actually a very important activity, and it allows you to use certain kind of items like wands and staves, for instance. And I think scrolls as well. Yeah, I think you need it for even that. But on top of all of this, you also gain access to essentially Spell Strike. Your Eldritch Shot allows you to charge a spell with a 1 to 2 action spell. This is 3 actions, by the way. So it's a 3 action activity. It's a 1 to 2 action. You charge your bow up with a spell. You cast it into the spell, or into the bow. And then you make a melee strike. And the spell flies with the ammunition, using your attack roll result to determine the effects of both the strike and the spell. Oh, yes, I did mention as well. The spell needs to have an attack roll as a part of it, which does kind of limit it. There's actually a surprising lack of attack roll spells, though there's a good number of cantrips, and Produce Flame would probably be your best bet for this archetype if you were having a hard time picking. And if, after this attack is made, it counts as 2 attacks to your multi-attack penalty. So if you have a quicken strike for whatever reason, that would be at, your 3rd attack rather than your 2nd attack. Overall, this is really good. It's essentially Spell Strike. It's a Spell Strike with a mandatory spell recharge, because you don't actually need to recharge this like Spell Strike normally does. Though the difference being this has 3 actions while Spell Strike has 2 actions. So it's rather inflexible, and it doesn't really have the same efficiency that Spell Strike does. So this is not a better Spell Strike. And it only works with bows, which is very important as well. But overall, all this in just the dedication, Eldritch Archer is setting itself up to be a very good archetype dedication. The first feat up on the list is basic Eldritch Archer spellcasting. That's a big mouthful, but I'm just gonna refer to this as to basic spellcasting, and you gain the basic spellcasting benefits. If you're not aware what those are, it gives you a first level spell and I think a second level spell at this level. Actually, I think it gives you a first, second, and third level spell at this level specifically. You can look up the benefits to each of the levels yourself, but essentially it gives you access to 3 spell levels eventually when you hit certain level requirements. Overall, pretty good, and it works with the Eldritch shot, giving you hopefully more access to really good, powerful shots. And not only that, it gives you access to spells. You can just cast these as spells. No one is saying that any of the spells you gain from this has to be used with your Eldritch shot. So you just get spellcasting benefits on top of being a pseudo-ranged Magus character, which is just really good. Enchanting Arrow is just really good. You can consider this as a power attack used for a bow. For 2 actions, you whisper into your bow and you make a strike, and this strike does an additional 2d6 mental damage. And if you crit the enemy also becomes stunned. Stunned 1. And if your bow gets higher level striking runes, so at greater it gets 3d6 mental damage, and at major it gets 4d6 mental damage. This is a really good power attack, in all honesty. And on top of that, this doesn't count as multiple attacks towards your multi-attack penalty, nor does this have any kind of flourish or open or even, traits that affect the action economy. This is an even better power attack, in all honesty, and it has the potential to stun on crit. That's really good. That's almost broken, honestly. Now, it does require that you're using a bow, specifically. Bows are strong, though I do feel like some of the other ranged weapons do have a little bit more to offer than bows, so I do think this keeps bows more than relevant as the game, keeps going forward. Magic Arrow is amazing, and if you're making like a green arrow kind of build, with a bunch of wacky arrow effects, this is overall the feat for you. So it's a free action, but it's a lot more than that. When you select this feat initially, you get 3 ammunitions. You select 3 ammunitions of 4th level or lower that you have access to / your GM gives you access to. Technically, it says that are from the core rulebook, though it says your GM might allow you to choose other types of magic ammunition, such as uncommon ammunition or ammunition from other books. It's a very weird specification, and almost nowhere else in Pathfinder does that kind of specification exist, though I guess it is a limiting factor in case the magic ammunition becomes too crazy, which I can see for sure. But yeah, so you get these 3, or you have these 3 special types of ammunition kind of like on reserve in a sense. And then when you're using Magic Arrow, so as a free action, once per round, you shoot the ammunition before you load that special ammunition into your weapon, and you shoot the ammunition before the end of your turn or the magic dissipates. So you have a round to get it off. This is essentially you set up a shot and you decide it. Honestly, they could have made this a specific strike, but they didn't, which is even better because that means if this archetype provides you any specific strike actions, technically you can load those actions up with a unique piece of magic ammunition. And when you use Magic Arrow, you can choose a type of ammunition that is typically not available to the type of ammunition you're using, which means bolt type ammunitions and bullet type ammunitions technically work as well. Because it's magic, I guess. I don't know. It's really strong, actually. And not only that, but you can actually select this feat multiple times to gain 3 more additional types of ammunition with the same prerequisites as above. They don't ever get above item level 4, which does hamper this power kind of towards the later game. But still, I mean, it's just free. You just get free magic ammunition once per round. It's kind of broken, honest. It's so good. It's so good because that's like, you could use this a lot and just get a lot of gold value out of your strikes. I don't know. There's a really, really good feat. Precious Arrow makes no sense to me considering the last feat. Honestly, I'd swap Precious Arrow's action with Magic Arrow's action. Because Precious Arrow, what it does is you enchant an arrow to have the qualities of cold iron or silver, and eventually adamantine, which adamantine is actually pretty sick, honestly, because it does extra damage to constructs, which is very, very good. But in any regard, but it's an action. So you load it up as an action, and then you need to fire it before the end of your turn, or the effect goes away. Similar to Magic Arrow, only this one's an action, and Magic Arrow is a free action. So I don't know. I would have made both of them an action, and I think that'd be balanced. But yeah, it's good. If you're fighting an enemy with a particular weakness, I mean, you're not likely to fire more than twice in a round anyway. So this is a good way to set up some actions, move, grab an arrow, and then launch an attack at an enemy and hopefully inflict weakness. So I like this one, and I think the action is balanced. I just find it strange in comparison to Magic Arrow, which is a free action. So, whatever. Both good, both strong. Next up is Expert Eldritch Archer Spellcasting, which gives you expert spellcasting benefits. Simple as that. More spells. You get a lot of them. You get these, I think, a little bit later than you would from like a magical class. In fact, I know for a fact that you do, at least for this one. So you do gain extra spellcasting benefits slower than a magic multi-class, for instance, but it's still really good. Next up is Seeker Arrow, which is really good. Seeker Arrow is a single action strike that you make, which, I mean, you can pair this with either Precious Arrow or Magic Arrow, depending. And what Seeker Arrow does is it ignores the conceal condition and all cover. It does say it goes around corners, but what it's referring to is if an enemy is using like a corner, for instance, that's giving them 3/4 cover, that take cover action to gain greater cover, you can shoot them. You still kind of need line of effect, so they would still need to be gaining the benefits of cover for this arrow to essentially hit them. It's very important to mention because you still need essentially line of effect. You still need to be like able to see a little bit of their box or what have you. It doesn't let you just shoot through or around walls necessarily. You can't just shoot it around. No, we got an arrow for that here in just a second, but more or less, it gets around all kinds of cover depending on the enemy's positioning. All right, next up is Phase Arrow, which is another really good action, though this one can only be used once per day, which is quite understandable as it's very strong. I'm going to look at it over here because it's got a lot going for it. So for a single action, you make a strike with your bow, which again can be paired with the Precious Shot and Magic Shot. Figured I mentioned. And you can make a strike against any foe who is observed or hidden. So as long as they're not undetected, you can hit them. And the ammunition travels to your target in a straight line, passing through any non-magical barriers or walls in its way. Though magic barriers stop the arrow, blah, blah, blah. This shot ignores all cover, the concealed condition, the hidden condition, and circumstance bonus to AC from shields. This even negates shields. It has a +4 status bonus against enemies wearing any type of armor, which is nuts. And the strikes can't be blocked using shield block unless it's a magical shield. And this is something I kind of thought about for a second. I was like, well, higher level enemies might have magic shields more often. They don't. Actually, a lot of enemies in the book that have shields don't have particularly magic shields. So this is actually really relevant even in later game. That +4 status bonus to any enemy wearing armor is nuts. It is not broken though, because there's actually a surprising number of enemies that rely purely on the density of their hide. They're not wearing armor. You can find that in their character sheet or the monster block, what kind of equipment they have, whether they have armor or not, or it can be reason depending on the GM. However, so it doesn't really, it's still really, really good. It means that even high level enemies can be hit easily by this. And honestly, phase arrow alone would make even a spellcaster potentially really good, because that +4 bonus to your attacks against an armored enemy almost makes up the difference compared to like a non, like Eldritch Archer member of your team, because at this level most spellcasters actually have at least expert in weapons. That +4 gets you up to equivalently legendary, which is nuts compared to all the other marshals out there. It is, and it's only a single action, but it is once per day, so that once per day is also a big balancing factor. But Eldritch Archer, man, it's got so many good abilities, and they're all like just one action. It's nuts, honestly. Ah, yes, we can't forget Arrow of Death. Now, this one is 3 actions and also once per day, and your DM is going to be thankful for that, because what Arrow of Death does is you concentrate an immense amount of magic. I'm sorry, wrong one. You modify an arrow or bolt to bring death to your target. Now, it does say bolts, which is strange, because this does require you make a bow strike. Now, I'm assuming that might be how, in conjunction with the magic shot or magic arrow, either way. Magic arrow, yeah. Magic arrow, which does allow you to use shots or other types of ammunition, which, I mean, technically, I guess you couldn't use bullets then. In any regard, make a bow strike on hit, deal an additional 10d10 precision damage. 10d10 precision damage. And on a critical hit, the enemy needs to make a fort save against your class DC or spell DC, whichever is higher, or be immediately slain. This save has the death and incapacitation trait. So incapacitation means if the enemy is higher level than you, they're going to get a level of success better. That's important. This is not a boss slaying weapon. Granted, 10d10 persistent damage is still a lot of damage, and this can be used to kill anything that's like a moderate threat to the party. That's your guys' level, more or less. So, that being the case, it's really good. It is only once per day, but man, 10d10 damage extra on an arrow? That's nuts. Next up is Master Eldritch spellcasting, which I actually didn't mention with the other spellcasting as well, but this kind of became relevant with Arrow of Death before. These spellcasting benefits also improve your spellcasting ability using those, or using magic, your spell DCs more or less. So, with like Arrow of Death, for instance, your spell DC is actually going to be pretty good as long as you have a decent charisma. And even if you only have like a +2 or +3 charisma, it's still going to be pretty good, especially with Master Spellcasting benefits. So that Eldritch Archer just feeds into itself. And again, these spells do not have to be all used with your Eldritch shot. You can just cast extra magic on top of being a really good archer. Eldritch Archer is just nuts. The last feat in the list is Impossible Volley, which is 3 actions. It's a fighter and ranger feat. This also has the Flourish and Open traits, which it has to really have open, and Flourish doesn't make the most sense because you're using 3 actions, and even if you had a quickened actions have only a specific type of action you can use, like a standard strike. So technically, Flourish and Open are not necessary here. They're a bit redundant. There we go. That was what I was looking for. But regardless, they do have those traits. Anyway, for 3 actions, as long as you're wielding a ranged weapon that has the volley trait and a reload of 0, so the longbow, for instance, and probably some other ones, you make a 10-foot burst attack at your attack penalty -2, which, I mean, will be your maximum. This will essentially be your normal attack -2, because you can't even do your second attack unless, I guess, you're quickened. Yeah, if you're quickened, technically you could fire a shot then do this. Nope, you can't, because it has open trait. So open is actually not redundant. Haha. Flourishes though, regardless. So yeah, you fire at your normal attack -2, and you create a 10-foot burst radius centered on the range of your volley trait. So the volley trait has a certain range in which it takes a penalty if the enemies are too close. The dot. So how you do areas normally is you select a corner of a square. And so this corner has to be at least the range of your volley away, and it can be centered on, or this impossible volley can be spaced further than that, taking your normal range increments, of course. And because it doesn't say state within your first range increment. So I have to assume. Other than that, you only roll to hit once, and you roll for damage once. And you apply this damage against all attacks, or all enemies in this burst. And you don't apply a multi-attack penalty until all the attacks are done. You're guaranteed almost, well, not guaranteed, I guess. Technically, if you only hit one enemy with this, which would be a huge waste, technically you would only be at your second attack after this. So something to think about. But anyway, it's really good. It's a good area attack. It is all your actions. There's no requirements. You could do this every round if you really want to. I don't know why you would unless you've expended all your other really cool, like, per day stuff. But it's really good area damage. So, you know, and it fits the Eldritch Archer perfectly. And that's the Eldritch Archer. Probably one of the strongest archetypes out there. I would even argue that this is potentially stronger than the Archer archetype dedication, which is saying a lot because the Archer archetype dedication is very strong. And if you're using bonus archetype and you're mixing these two, you're doing a lot of damage. You know, a big thing in Pathfinder First Edition was the, like, massive damage bow builds. And I see they brought them back for second edition. Not nearly as terribly, but still, you can do some nutty stuff with a bow in this game. And that's honestly really cool. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all liked it. The Eldritch Archer is really, really cool. And again, I don't know why I never think about Eldritch Archer, but after doing this video, it's like, oh my god, it's so strong. Jeez. So yeah, this is a really good one. You might see this in a build coming up soon. Regardless, that's going to be it from me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.